Kyle adjusted the mic, cleared his throat, and said it. We want to thank the man who gave us life, our real dad. Not the guy who just paid the bills. The moment hung in the air like a noose. It was graduation day, the culmination of 15 years of scraped knees, missed holidays, carpools, algebra meltdowns, dentist appointments, and birthdays I remembered when everyone else forgot. And there I was, Gary, proud stepfather, back row, buttoned-up shirt clinging to my spine in the gymnasium heat, holding my breath, waiting, smiling even, until that. Megan nodded along, glowing like some pageant queen, her cap tassel bouncing as she smiled right at him, standing 3 rows ahead of me. Carl, the biological sperm donor who couldn't be bothered to send a birthday card, who once pawned Megan's bike for gas money, and whose only contribution to their lives came in the form of mediocre DNA and unpaid child support. Rachel, my wife, didn't even flinch. She didn't turn. She didn't meet my eyes. Just sat there, face frozen in something that might have once been a smile, but now looked like rigor mortis with lip gloss. I didn't stand. I didn't storm out. I didn't cause a scene. I just sat, every muscle in my body turning to granite. My jaw didn't twitch. My hands didn't tremble. But something in me snapped clean. People looked around awkwardly. Some turned to see who just paid the bills. One woman in a blue hat nudged her husband. Isn't that their stepdad back there? He squinted at me like I was a stranger who wandered in for the cake. Let me tell you something. When you raise 2 kids from diapers to diplomas, it's not just time. It's identity. It's sacrifice, compounding interest of the soul. And when they take a flamethrower to that in front of 1,000 people, you don't scream. You calcify. I looked at Kyle. He was grinning like he just won a damn Oscar. I looked at Megan, all gloss and teeth. And then I looked past them, right past their mother. I found myself staring at a loose wire above the basketball hoop, just watching it sway. Not because I didn't care, but because if I looked at her, I might have broken. You've probably heard stories like this before. Maybe you're thinking, just another dad getting shafted. But trust me, you haven't heard this one. Because what came after that speech? What I did next? That's the part that turned the whole town upside down. So before we go further, if you're one of the 98% who listens without hitting that subscribe button, do it now. It helps more than you think. And frankly, this team deserves to keep going. Anyway, after the ceremony, everyone rushed to the stairs for photos. Rachel posed next to the twins, arms around both of them, smiling like she hadn't just watched me get throat punched in front of her extended family and God. Carl joined in. Carl tossed him a graduation cap and said, "Wear it, Dad." Like this was some sitcom moment they'd remember fondly. No one invited me in for the photo. I didn't move. I just watched. I was a ghost at my own funeral. After the crowd thinned, I approached Rachel. She was laughing with her sister, wine cup already in hand. I asked if she wanted help packing up the banners and congratulatory signs. You know what she said? "Don't take it personally, Gary. They're just kids. Just kids." I nodded, said nothing. But in my chest, a fuse sparked. Not a fire. Fires burn out. No, I went cold. And cold is permanent. The garage was silent except for the soft hum of the old beer fridge and the occasional creak of the rafters, like the house itself was too ashamed to speak. I sat on the stained fold-out chair by the tool bench, fingers laced, elbows on knees, staring at a pile of cardboard boxes labeled in black marker. Kyle, Science Fair, Megan, 3rd grade drawings, Zmaz Decor, 2016. Each box was a little shrine to a moment I showed up when no one else did. Kyle's first Pinewood Derby car, which we carved together in one long February night with a busted Dremel tool and a YouTube video. Megan's papier-mâché volcano, painted bright pink for God knows what reason, that I stayed up with her rebuilding after it collapsed the night before the fair. A dusty lunchbox with faded Ninja Turtles on the side sat on the shelf. Kyle's. He used to call it his battle pack. I cleaned peanut butter out of that thing more times than I could count. Funny what sticks. Funny what doesn't. And in that moment, sitting in the stillness of 15 years' worth of unnoticed effort, the pain didn't feel sharp. It was dull. Familiar. The kind of ache that knows your name. I looked over at a framed photo on the pegboard. The 4 of us at Niagara Falls. Rachel had insisted on the matching shirts. Team Matthews, it said. What a joke. Should have read. Disposable wallet and accessories. Eventually, I stood. My knees cracked louder than I wanted them to, but I didn't wince. I climbed the basement stairs slowly, one hand trailing the railing like I was coming out of a bunker. Rachel was in the kitchen, scraping cake off a plastic plate with her fingernail. She didn't even look at me when she said, "You're being dramatic, Gary. Don't take it personally. It was just a moment. Just a moment. Right. Like 15 years can be offset by one oops." I didn't answer. I walked right past her, down the hall into the bedroom. I opened the closet, pushed past the hanging blazers I never wore anymore, and reached up to the safe on the top shelf. 6 digits. Click. Inside sat a thick envelope. Neatly folded checks, each made out in staggered amounts over the past 5 years. One for every tax return, every bonus, every late night overtime shift I didn't argue about. The fund wasn't just money. It was hope, faith in their future, in us. I pulled out the top check, freshly printed, Megan's name on it, for her first semester. I held it in my hands for a long time. Thought about how she used to climb onto my lap with a "Daddy, can you read to me?" voice and a half-eaten granola bar in her hand. Then I folded it back up and returned it to the safe. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. I just clicked it shut. You know, people talk about heartbreak like it's some explosion. But mine was more like a glacier. Slow, massive, irreversible. I stood there in the dim closet light, and one thought crystallized so clearly in my mind it nearly made me laugh. They think the money's waiting for them. They don't realize I was the money. And I'm not waiting anymore. The house smelled like rotisserie chicken and sangria. Laughter spilled from the kitchen like cheap perfume. Loud, boisterous, a little too performative. Carl's laugh, that laugh, was the loudest. That obnoxious, barky one that made you feel like you were inside a sitcom filmed in a trailer park. He was holding court over the kitchen island like some returning war hero. Shirt too tight, gold chain flashing under the recessed lighting. Rachel stood beside him with her wine glass half raised, doing that high-pitched giggle she used to save for my birthday. The twins were on the back deck with their friends, phones out, posing for selfies in front of the banner I hung up that morning. Congrats, Megan and Kyle, class of 2025. I stood in the corner of the living room, near the bookshelf that used to hold our wedding photos. They'd been replaced with candles and some farmhouse sign that said, "This is us." Yeah, sure it is. Rachel didn't speak to me for most of the evening, not directly. She floated past with plates and drink pitchers, touching Carl's arm twice as much as necessary. Kyle came in to grab another soda and walked right past me. Didn't say hi, didn't even register I existed. I was standing by the folding table with the gift cards and envelopes when I saw the one I'd slipped under the others. Simple white envelope, clean handwriting. To Kyle, proud of you. He opened it 5 minutes later on the deck. I watched from the window as he pulled out the card, read the message, looked at the enclosed check, and shrugged. "Thanks," he mumbled. Then he stuffed the card back into the envelope like it was junk mail and dropped it in a stack next to someone's half-eaten cupcake. Megan didn't open hers. I'm not sure she even noticed it was from me. And you know what? That was the moment. Not the speech. Not the brunch plans. That was the moment it all turned. Because it wasn't anger I felt. It was freedom. There's a weird kind of liberation in realizing no one expects anything from you anymore. Not respect, not attention, not presence. They'd already written me out of the script. I was the background prop they forgot to move off stage. So I left. I didn't announce it. Just stepped back inside, walked down the hallway, past Rachel and Carl clinking glasses, past the graduation balloons that were still half inflated. I entered the bedroom, opened the closet, reached for the safe. 6 digits. Click. This time, I didn't just look at the envelope. I took every check, every savings bond, and the final bonus deposit and moved them all to my briefcase. Then I sat down at my desk, logged into my bank, and transferred every cent into a private account under a new name, one no one in this house would ever see again. I didn't even use the bank we normally used. Different institution entirely. I set up alerts, passwords, two-factor authentication. Then I closed the laptop, stood up, and went back to the party like nothing happened. Rachel was in the backyard now, laughing at something Carl said while he showed everyone a photo on his phone. Megan was sitting on the edge of the hot tub with her friends, pretending I didn't exist. And maybe I didn't. Not anymore. But I had the one thing they never noticed I controlled. And it was already gone. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I called in, told Mike I needed a personal day. He didn't ask why. Just said, "Take what you need, man." Which hit harder than he probably meant it to. I ironed a clean shirt, dug out the decent khakis, and drove across town. Not to the plant, but to the brick office building just past Main, where the glass is always spotless and the receptionist has that unervingly sincere smile. I wasn't there to browse options. I had a list. Names, numbers, intentions. First stop, the lawyer. Mr. Greer was a sharp guy, mid-60s, who looked like he played chess with judges and won. He glanced at the envelope I slid across his desk and raised a brow. "You're serious about this?" I was serious the moment they thanked a man who didn't buy a single damn notebook. He nodded once, didn't press. Just got to work. We set up a trust. Not for Megan. Not for Kyle. For Sarah. Sarah was Rachel's niece. Her brother's kid. A quiet girl who Rachel never liked. Said she was too serious and awkward, which, in Rachel speak, meant she wasn't interested in brunches, Botox, or betrayal. Sarah worked at the grocery store on nights and cleaned offices on weekends. Her mom used to say she dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. But college? That was off the table after her dad bailed and her mom got sick. I hadn't seen Sarah in a couple years. Last time was Christmas Eve, when she brought a tin of cookies and helped wash dishes while Kyle sat in the recliner, playing Xbox and pretending she didn't exist. She was the only person that night who asked if I needed help carrying things to the car. So I called her. She answered on the third ring, out of breath. "Sorry, I'm on break." "Everything okay?" "Depends," I said. "You still want to go to college?" She laughed like I was joking. I told her I wasn't. Silence. "Seriously?" "I can't promise everything," I said. "But I can get you started. Tuition, books, housing, and a cushion. You've earned it." She didn't cry. Not then. Just whispered, "Why me?" "Because you never asked." And that's exactly why. Later that afternoon, I met with my financial advisor and moved the funds officially, restructured everything, labeled it under the trust's name. No ties to the Matthews household. No paper trail Rachel could sniff out without a subpoena and a miracle. Meanwhile, back at the house, the fantasy rolled on uninterrupted. I saw a group text pop up on the family iPad in the kitchen, Megan sharing photos of dorm options with Rachel, Kyle bragging about what gaming setup he'd bring, Rachel talking about which wine glasses to donate now that she'd have her space back. They planned everything. Move-in dates. What color sheets to buy. What to do with Kyle's lizard. Rachel even joked about turning Megan's room into a yoga studio. None of them noticed the balance had dropped to zero. None of them asked. Why would they? They'd been conditioned to believe the world just worked out. That dad, stepdad, correction, would always be there with the check, the ride, the safety net. So while they poured mimosas and measured for curtain rods, I was quietly rewriting the entire story. Not out of spite, out of principle. You don't get to spit in the face of the man who held your umbrella in every storm and still expect him to carry you to shelter when the next one rolls in. It started with a ping. Rachel was in the kitchen when the email came through. Her laptop chirped that cheerful little chime like it was delivering a coupon or a holiday recipe. Instead, it was a polite digital slap from the admissions office at Hudson State. Subject: deposit not received. Action required. She read it once, then again, her face folding into that confused smirk she wears when the universe dares to inconvenience her. She hit reply, paused, then changed her mind and reached for her phone. I was on my lunch break, sitting alone in the cab of my truck outside a deli, unwrapping a turkey sandwich like it was a crime scene, when the screen lit up. Rachel, home calling. I let it ring twice before answering. "Yeah, you didn't send the deposit," she said. "No hello. No lead-in. 4. Hudson. The dorm payments. Kyle's housing. They're saying it bounced or something." I took a slow bite of the sandwich. Chewed. Swallowed. "Huh," I said. "I'll look into it." "Look into it?" "Yeah. Probably a glitch." There was a pause on her end. I could hear the kitchen clock ticking. Then, "Gary, are you okay?" "Never better." Click. Back at the house, Megan was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to do something on her laptop but clearly eavesdropping. She caught enough to raise an eyebrow. Later that night, while folding towels, she asked Rachel, "Is the money not there?" Rachel, in full damage control mode, waved her off. "It's probably just a mix-up. Your dad, he overthinks things." "Stepdad," Megan corrected, reflexively. Kyle, lying on the couch scrolling TikTok, chimed in without looking up. "He's not going to do anything. He's too soft. He cried during Finding Nemo, remember?" Megan giggled, but it sounded less certain than usual. Kyle's always been the loud one. The overconfident golden boy who thought every conversation was a spotlight. The kind of kid who never learned the difference between being handed something and earning it. That night, Rachel sent me a text. "Brunch this Sunday? Just us. We need to talk." Speech balloon read hard. I stared at it for a while. Just us was Rachel code for manipulation with coffee and egg whites. She was always best when she could disarm you with pancakes and nostalgia. I replied, "Sure. Looking forward to it." Which was true. I was looking forward to it. Because there's something beautiful about letting someone build the trap they think you're too dumb to see. Watching them tie the knots, smiling the whole time, thinking they're 2 moves ahead, when in fact, they're walking straight into the quicksand. Rachel was a world-class emotional puppeteer, but she'd forgotten one thing. Puppets burn just as fast as bridges. The brunch spot was one of those rustic farmhouse-turned-bistro places that serves eggs on wooden slabs and charges extra if you ask for ketchup. Rachel picked it, of course. Said it was neutral ground. What she meant was somewhere public, where she could control the tone. A place where raising your voice felt like a felony and the smell of artisanal sourdough softened every lie. She arrived in white linen, sunglasses perched on her head, acting like the world hadn't just cracked at the seams. "Hi, stranger," she said, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek like she hadn't spent the past week pretending I was invisible. I played along. Ordered black coffee. No food. Rachel, naturally, ordered something complicated with hollandaise. So she began, stirring her mimosa like she was prepping a speech. That email from Hudson, it threw me off. I thought maybe we miscommunicated. About the timeline, I mean. I nodded. You always used to be so organized with that stuff. Remember when you handled our taxes that year? God, I was such a mess. She laughed, lightly touching my hand across the table. But you pulled through. You always do. There it was, nostalgia bait. She kept going, winding the years backward like some carefully curated documentary. When Kyle had that asthma scare in 2nd grade, you stayed overnight in that awful plastic chair. They don't remember that, but I do. And when Megan lost her math binder the night before finals, you drove to 3 Targets. I nodded again, sipping my coffee. Lot of binders. She leaned in. Look. I know the speech at graduation stung. Kids don't always understand the impact of their words. They're teenagers. They think in hashtags. I cracked a smile. And you? She blinked. What? Do you understand the impact? Rachel hesitated, then did that thing where she tilts her head slightly like she's listening to a podcast. I just want us to be okay, Gary. The kids, they'll come around. You know how Kyle is. Loud. Dumb sometimes. But his heart's in the right place. Sure. She smiled, relieved. So, we're good? You'll handle the deposit. I set my cup down. Of course. She reached across the table, gave my hand a gentle squeeze. I knew I could count on you. It was almost a nice moment. Almost. Later that day, I met Sarah at the back entrance of the community center where she worked part-time. She was still in her janitor polo, her hair pulled into a ponytail, face flushed from scrubbing baseboards. She looked tired, but hopeful. I handed her the envelope. Thick, heavy, lined with documentation, confirmation numbers, and a prepaid account set up in her name. She opened it. Her eyes widened. Gary, this is... I can't. I held up a hand. You don't have to say anything. Just do something good with it. She paused, then glanced at the note I'd tucked on top. Because someone should know what effort looks like. She looked up, and I saw it, actual gratitude. Not the kind you fish for with money, but the kind that's earned with time, with silence, with presence. Meanwhile, across town, Kyle posted a photo on Instagram. Caption: Can't wait to move into Hudson. Big thanks to the man who made it happen. Hashtag free ride, hashtag family first. And the photo? Him and Carl in front of the grill, holding beer cans like they'd just conquered Everest. No mention of me. Not even a lie. Just nothing at all. Perfect. Because while they were busy staging fantasy, I was finalizing reality. And reality had already picked a side. Orientation week was supposed to be their victory lap. Megan had ordered new bedsheets in sage green aesthetic and was already mapping out which wall in the dorm would feature her fairy lights. Kyle had packed 3 duffel bags like he was deploying overseas, including a PS5, 2 monitors, and a pair of overpriced sneakers he still hadn't removed the tags from for the first frat party, he said. They both posed for pictures that morning. Rachel took them. Megan captioned one, on a bigger things. Kyle posted his with a flex and a sunglasses emoji. Carl commented, proud of you, son. Rachel loved it. I didn't even get the invite to come along. And that was fine. I had somewhere else to be that morning, sitting on my porch, sipping hot coffee, watching the birds pick at the feeder I'd been meaning to refill. I'd already taken the day off. Not for them. For me. Because I knew exactly what was coming. Around 2:30 p.m., the first tremor hit. Rachel called. I let it go to voicemail. 3 minutes later, a text came through. What the hell is going on? Call me now. I smiled. Took another sip. At 3:04, Megan texted, Megan, who hadn't messaged me in over 2 months. They're saying tuition wasn't paid. I'm literally at orientation. This is humiliating. I took my time replying. When I did, it was 3 words. Talk to your mom. By 4:10, the eruption arrived in person. Rachel pounded on my door like a repo man with a deadline. I opened it calmly, coffee in hand, and stepped aside. She stormed in, eyes wide, jaw clenched. They said tuition never cleared. Megan was crying in the damn hallway. Carl couldn't even get his dorm key. I nodded. Tough day. What the hell did you do, Gary? Me. I said, walking to the kitchen. I thought I was just the guy who paid the bills. She blinked. That line landed like a slap. I opened the drawer, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and slid it across the counter. A withdrawal slip. From our joint college fund account. Dated the day after graduation. Full balance. Gone. She stared at it like it was written in a foreign language. You can't be serious, she whispered. You all made it very clear, I said, leaning on the counter. You wanted the real dad. The speeches. The photos. The public glory. So I let him have it. But this is different, she hissed. This is their future. You can't just... I didn't just do anything. I planned. I moved. I decided. Like I've always done. Quietly. Efficiently. The way I was taught. She stumbled back, phone already in hand. We'll sue. We'll... You won't. I cut in. Because the account was in my name. My contributions. My taxes. Every penny documented. Nothing illegal. Just inconvenient. Her mouth opened. Then closed. She was trembling now, but not from rage. From realization. Outside, a car pulled up, Kyle in the passenger seat, Megan behind the wheel. They didn't even wait for the car to stop before leaping out and rushing toward the door. Kyle was first through. What the hell, Gary? They're saying I don't even have a student ID. I turned slowly. Sounds like a problem for your real dad. Megan's eyes were red. Why would you do this? You mean after your little speech about how I'm just the guy who pays the bills? I looked between them. I figured I'd stop paying. They stared at me, stunned. Not angry. Stunned. Like someone just told them gravity didn't apply anymore. Rachel sank onto the edge of the couch, burying her face in her hands. What are we supposed to do now? I walked past her to the door and held it open. Figure it out. And for the first time since I met any of them, I realized. They'd never had to. Until now. The invitation came through a shared family group chat, Matthew's Family Barbecue, Sunday at Aunt Linda's. Bring sides. It was the usual summer gathering. Lawn chairs, paper plates, overcooked burgers, and those potato salads that all taste vaguely like regret. I hadn't planned on going. But then again, neither had Rachel. Not until her narrative started slipping through her fingers like cheap rose. I arrived early. Quietly. Sat near the edge of the yard, sipping iced tea, letting the humidity do its thing. Aunt Linda waved from the grill. Glad you made it, Gary. Haven't seen you since Easter. Been around? I said, nodding. By 3 p.m., the backyard was full. Kids running through sprinklers. Carl, in a backwards baseball cap, was already on his second beer, trying too hard to bond with Megan and Kyle like they were frat brothers instead of the children he'd ghosted most of their lives. Rachel showed up fashionably late and already emotionally off-kilter. She wore that bright yellow sundress she used to save for church picnics. It looked like she was trying to costume herself into joy. She made the rounds. Hugs, kisses, fake laughter. But the cracks were there. It started when Uncle Dave casually asked Kyle how college life was going. Kyle froze. Looked at Rachel. Rachel chuckled, a little too loud. We're working through some administrative hiccups. Then Megan's cousin asked if she'd picked her major yet. That's when the veneers started to peel. Rachel snapped. We would have picked majors already if someone hadn't sabotaged everything we planned for years. The yard went quiet. Even the grill hissed like it was listening. Aunt Linda looked up. Rachel? She turned, eyes locking on me across the yard like a heat-seeking missile. He took it. All of it. The college fund. Just emptied it. Now every fork and drink paused midair. Carl piped up. Wait, what's she talking about? Rachel stormed to the center of the yard like she was taking the stage. Gary withdrew every cent the day after graduation. After everything we did for him. After 15 years of raising those kids like his own. I didn't say a word. Just lifted my glass in acknowledgement. The silence was thick. Eyes turned. People shifting in their seats. Judging. Processing. Aunt Linda cleared her throat. Rachel, weren't you the one who posted that weird graduation clip? The one where they thanked Carl? Rachel blinked. That was their idea. Someone else muttered, I mean. I saw it. Kinda sounded like you were clapping. Rachel's face flushed. I didn't mean to. This wasn't supposed to. He blindsided us. I finally spoke, calm and even. No blindsiding. I just stopped paying the bills. Like I was told. Kyle, red-faced, finally cracked. We didn't mean it that way. I mean, it was just a joke. Graduation stuff. Heat of the moment. I raised my glass again. You said what you meant. More silence. Then murmurs. Cousin Brittany whispered to her boyfriend. Uncle Dave shook his head. Carl looked like he wanted to sink into the lawn. Rachel, now visibly shaking, hissed, You're embarrassing me. I leaned back in the chair, crossed my legs. I'm just sitting here, Rachel. I haven't raised my voice once. She looked around, desperate for someone to back her up, but found only a wall of avoidance. People fiddled with their drinks, suddenly very interested in their deviled eggs. The quiet judgment was louder than any shouting match could have been. I finished my tea, stood up, nodded politely to Aunt Linda. Thanks for the invite, I said. Always a pleasure. And with that, I left Rachel standing in the middle of the backyard, clutching a plastic cup, surrounded by family she thought would always be on her side. Turns out, loyalty doesn't follow the bloodline. It follows the truth. It started as a simple Facebook post. No hashtags. No filters. Just a grainy photo of Sarah in her new dorm, holding a box of books with that quiet, stunned smile that only comes from getting something you never thought you'd have. My daughter just got a second chance. Not because of luck. Not because someone had to. But because someone chose to. Thank you, Gary. You owed her nothing. But you gave her everything. It was Sarah's mom who posted it. She still used a Samsung from 2013 and typed with 2 fingers. But that post? It went viral. Not celebrity viral. Not dancing dog viral. Small town viral. Hundreds of shares. Dozens of comments from teachers, neighbors, old church friends. Sarah deserves this. That's real fatherhood. I remember when Gary came to every band recital those kids had. And now this? Unbelievable. Rachel saw it. And it gutted her. She showed up at my work the next morning. Unannounced. Red-eyed. Makeup half done like she gave up halfway through the mirror. I was on my break in the loading bay, sipping gas station coffee when I saw her car pull up, wrong way, hazard lights on. She stumbled out like her heels betrayed her. Gary, she called, already crying, please. I took one last sip. Set the cup down. Kept walking. She followed. Gary, wait, can we please talk? Just for a minute. I said nothing. Just stepped past her like she was a stranger on the sidewalk. They're your kids too. She choked. We made a mistake. We didn't mean it. The word hung in the air like smoke from a ruined engine. We? You didn't mean it? The words didn't deserve an answer. I entered the side door, badge clicked the security panel, and let the door shut gently between us. Through the glass, I saw her sink to the pavement, hand shaking, mascara bleeding down into the wrinkles she'd started blaming on bad lighting. That night, I got home just after 8. The hallway light in my apartment complex was flickering again. It always flickered. Part of the charm, I guess. I turned the key, stepped out of the elevator, and there she was. Rachel, on her knees, in front of my door. Her purse had spilled. Keys, gum wrappers, a bottle of CVS brand anti-anxiety pills rolling in slow circles on the tile. She wasn't crying now. She was sobbing. Raw. Guttural. "Gary, please," she whispered. "Please. Look at me. Look at me. I'll fix it. I'll make them apologize. Just don't do this. Don't walk away from us." A neighbor peeked out from the end of the hall. Another opened their door, then slowly closed it. This wasn't a private moment anymore. This was theater, and I was done being part of her performance. I stepped past her carefully, so she wouldn't think I was helping her up, unlocked the door, and paused just long enough to meet her eyes. Not with anger, with indifference. The kind you earn. The kind you grow into when you realize not everyone who cries in front of you is worth saving. Then I shut the door. No slam. No final speech. Just silence. And the sound of someone finally realizing they never had a safety net. Only a man they mistook for one. The bank was quiet. Cool. One of those newer branches with soft jazz in the background and carpets thick enough to muffle every regret that walked through the door. Sarah sat beside me, fingers locked in her lap, tapping nervously. She'd straightened her hair, put on a blazer that still had the tag tucked discreetly into the sleeve. Probably a thrift store find. Probably cost her 2 lunch shifts. "Mr. Matthews?" the teller said, smiling politely. "We're all set. Just need a final signature to release the remaining funds." I passed the folder to Sarah without hesitation. She looked at me once, like she was still waiting for the catch. "There's no trap," I said. "You earned this." She signed. Her hands were shaking. The teller glanced between us and smiled again. "Lucky girl." I shook my head, standing. No, just someone who never forgot who was there. That landed heavier than she realized. We walked out into the late afternoon sun. The heat was starting to fall off the day, golden light stretching long across the hood of my truck. Sarah hugged me tight. No words. Just that breathless, shaking hug you only give someone once in your life. She got into her rideshare. Off to class, off to campus, off to a future no one handed her, but one she ran toward when someone finally opened the damn gate. I drove out of town slower than usual. Not because I was stalling, but because there was one last turn I needed to make. The old house. It hadn't changed much on the outside. Same brick, same cracked driveway. But there was a new addition now. A big white for sale sign, wobbling slightly in the breeze. The garage door was open, half filled with cardboard boxes. Megan was dragging a suitcase across the lawn, lugging a flat screen under one arm like a wounded soldier. Both avoiding eye contact. And Rachel? Rachel was on the porch. Not waving. Not crying. Just sitting there in a plastic lawn chair, ankles crossed, sunglasses on. Even though the sun was dipping behind the trees. She saw me. She knew I'd see them. It wasn't a trap. It wasn't a performance. It was just the end. I didn't slow down. Didn't roll the window down. Didn't flick a wave or throw one last middle finger out of habit. I just drove. Past the house where I'd spent 15 years making lunches and fixing leaks and doing homework and pretending effort could fill the holes someone else left behind. Past the people who called someone else real. Past the idea that love given unconditionally always comes back. It doesn't. But sometimes it goes somewhere better. And in my rearview mirror, nothing worth looking at. What hit me hardest wasn't the betrayal. It was how calmly he let go. Sometimes the deepest power is in silence, in walking away without needing to explain yourself. People who take you for granted never expect you to stop showing up. But when you do, that's when they finally feel the cost.